It is my greatest honor to introduce our first guest panelist for the day, none other than Dr. Bhaskar Ramamurthi, who is the director of IIT Madras. Apart from being the director of IIT Madras, he is known very much across engineering conclaves and associations in the country. He's a fellow of the Indian National Engineering Academy, the IEEE. Many awards and honors to his credit, apart from having to manage probably one of the hottest institutions in the country. Little known to perhaps the usual coterie of people is Dr. Bhaskar's very, very deep interest, involvement, and learning in the arts. This is not something that immediately strikes people. And we want to welcome him on this panel because who better than the director of IIT Madras to actually talk about where higher education itself is headed. Is it enough if students are only exposed to maths and science and are arts not relevant? How does arts help a child? How does arts help learning? How does he see this shaping up, this idea of art integration as we move into the 21st century? Welcome, Dr. Bhaskar. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this. You've been a long-time friend and a supporter, and it is our greatest honor to have you here, sir.
Thank you, Anil, and my thanks to your organization, Rhapsody and Macmillan, for having me on this program. And my greetings to all those who have assembled in this program to participate today in your conclave. So let me begin by saying that, I think it is very well known for probably centuries, if not more, that the business of growing up, the business of taking a child, freshly born, absolutely godlike child and letting the child grow up into a man or a woman who is able to deal with both the positives and the negatives that they are going to face in the world. It's something that actually at one level happens pretty easily if you know how to go about it, but otherwise it can be quite a nightmare. And it's well known that you need a mix of learning in learning, picking up of knowledge, because humans are, as you know, they're probably among the few species in the world who actually pass on knowledge from one generation to another. I won't say the only one, but definitely among the few who have taken it to a pretty sophisticated level. So we picking up knowledge, understanding, hopefully as we grow wisdom. And then the other thing is the ability to deal with, we're a social animal. So how do you deal with others? How do you work with others? Everybody knows that it's teamwork that delivers astounding results. Everybody knows that, whether you're fighting a war or whether you're fighting a pandemic. So everybody knows this. And how do you make teams work? After all, the individuals have to align and do it voluntarily and not under the baton. So how do you do this? So everybody knows, and it's been well known, that the arts play a very big role in this. In fact, in our tradition, the Lalita Kala, as we call it, have been central in this. And it is in the past, I think a lot of it was picked up in the home environment, in the social environment. If you are in a community that has community festivals, in which you have to, the people, youngsters have to put up a dance and so on and so forth, do something, carry some palanquin, whatever. I think whole lot of activity was, a lot of this learning was in the social space. Sometimes in the home too. You get trained in music and so on, dance and so on at home. Increasingly, this is now moving into the school space, because the current lifestyle, nuclear families, most parents depend entirely on an outsourced entity called the school to do all of this. So I think in that context, we have to think about what schools have to do before we get to higher education. So it is very clear to me that schools have to not only focus on STEM or whatever, all the, not just science and technology and engineering and mathematics, but I would say the social sciences, the arts, everything in terms of the knowledge aspect of it. But they also have to equally focus on the arts, on sports, and all the other stuff that, as I said, was happening more in the social sphere earlier. And there's a lot of theories about left brain, right brain, and all that. I don't want to get into it. I think you can read it up. I'm not a very pedantic person. I don't want to get into that. But so in a school that I'm involved with, in a rural school, actually meant for fairly people without privilege, we actually implement this in a very, very serious manner. It's a girls' school. All the girls go through, yoga, go through sports, go through music, dance. And in the school, of course, they do, a limited amount of this, maybe one music class a week, one dance class a week, and so on. And then we also offer off school hours, more rigorous classes for those who are interested, actually also free of cost, but, for those who are interested. And actually quite a few children turn up on their own for going deeper in this. And then they also learn, the fine arts. Today, actually, it's very interesting that one of the things that comes in the way of what I would call appreciation building and amateur learning is the difficulty to get to first base. If you want to play a violin or a mridangam or a veena, or if you want to do sculpture or something, you have to first train your fingers and train your mind and train your hand. And it's so laborious and so exacting a process that many people just give up. One of the nice things that's happened because of technology is that, the kind of instrument that Anil was just playing, it's fairly easily accessible. You can't produce abaswaram on that. You may not be able to play a tune well, but you can't produce abaswaram on that. Whereas on the violin, as you have very well known, if somebody is learning violin in the house, it's very hard on the others. Okay. And mridangam is similar. You can't produce any sounds in the initial few months. But today on a rhythm keypad, you can. And similarly, I would say even sculpture, with 3D printing and so on, the ability to get something done, I think is from the mind to the reality is very important. If somebody wants to learn the skills to do it by their own hands, that can come later. So I think my general point is a lot of tools today, the ability to do karaoke. If you can hold the tune, I think today you can, have the joy of belting out a song with music. We couldn't do that when we were kids. It was very, very dull. Even if you could hold your own, the song would sound so, half-baked because there's no accompaniments. There's one poor guy who's known to you who claims he can play the mridangam or the, instrument. He can't do it well, and he or she can't do it that well, and then the whole thing flops. But today you can do karaoke. So I think that all these should be used by schools to really enable kids to enjoy and learn in the process. I'm not even going to go to the extent of benefiting STEM and so on. I think those are all second order things, but I think they need this very badly. At the end of this, they'll be able to look people in the eye, to be able to converse, to be able to communicate, to be able to work as teams. And when you play sports or when you participate in these things and you find somebody is better than you, you also learn to take, what you might call competition. You'll find that there's a place for everybody. There's a place for you too, but you don't get worked up because somebody is better than you in something. So these are all very important learnings which are missing if you don't have this. Broadly, I would say, strong engagement with sports, arts, and kids definitely need both sports and arts. They are growing; they need both of them. Now I'll come to higher education. So and I'll restrict myself to the IIT because that's what I'm familiar with. So we have a peculiar situation that the boys and girls who come here have already given away 4 years of their life to very rigorous STEM learning at the expense of everything else. And that's not very good, but that's unfortunately the way it is. So what we decided that to do is that every person who does get into the IIT, we wanted to make sure in their 4 years or 5 years here, they have the opportunity to make up and to actually pick up something, at least one, there. So it's now too old to do both sports and arts. We have to leave it to the, first of all, can't force anybody to do anything. So it's like when you go to these big buffets with 180 dishes and so on in weddings. So we just sort of offer a whole lot of clubs to these students in the sports, in the arts, in fine arts, everything, including cooking, and just let people discover something other than what they do in class as a passion, pursue it, learn it, work with others, team up, and so on. So people learn, to sing, and then they're able to participate in social singing in the hostel. It's a huge, very, very important, instead of shying away and hiding in the room. People are able to do social dancing. People are able to, participate in some generate their own music, if they learn a little bit. And then, as I said, these tools are always there. Putting up plays is very, very important. There was much more of it, interestingly, in the olden days when we had no tools, with just a bed sheet and and people at home. But people don't do it now. When you have all the tools, you can actually record a script, you can record music, you can record dialogues, and you can lip sync. You can put up even a background by projecting from a laptop. You don't need a big painted backdrop. So things have become easier, and yet children are not doing plays. So these are all very important, and we have sort of a soft target that every student in IIT Madras should be engaged in one activity at least, other than their academics. We don't force it. We don't call people and say, how come you're not doing anything? But we track this. We actually track how many students are registered in how many things, and how, what is this ratios and so on. And our idea is, if we are not doing a good job of putting this big menu in front of them and enticing them, if a very large percentage are not engaged in at least one such activity. So I would stop with this and say, I would say school is very important, and we are doing this in our rural school, and it's working wonders. The girls, when they come out, we only run to 10th standard, but the girls who are graduating are really, this is a school where in an area where, English is not spoken, but they are able to speak in English, they're able to speak in Tamil. We even teach them some Hindi, and they're able to, put together a quick, if they ask in the annual day, they put up a dance, it looks nice. They learn, they know enough how to carry themselves. They can hold a tune, they can all sing together. They can, if you put up a play, they can produce a script, including songs. And they can deliver dialogues with passion. So they don't have the fear, they don't have diffidence. I think these are all the things that really matters. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's very important for us to hear this from you, because as you know, the IITs also bear the yoke of course, being the pioneers as far as STEM education is concerned. But it's important to hear from you that even within the IIT campus, the encouragement of what we would call the human skills, the humane skills of social emotional learning through the arts, etc., is encouraged. I think in a way, what we are hearing you say is also that this is how we used to live, right? Long before the process of formal education came up, that families would get together, music would be made, art would be encouraged. There was a lot of creativity in the way we lived. But somewhere in the process of our hankering after certain formal strictures of educational process, largely borrowed from the West, unfortunately, that certain innate skills have been missed. And I think the idea of art integration and bringing art into education again is, in a way, going back while going towards the future. I think I would put it that way.
I think even drawing and coloring was there because columns were so big. I remember my sisters all used to spend hours doing this column in front of the house. So,
and which has obviously multiple benefits. It's not only about the drawing skill that you pick up, but it's like you said, the social skills. It's also wires your brain very, very differently. When that I can say, I know you and I share that in common. Musical training has definitely sharpened the way we do calculations, for example. Rhythm has taught us that. I mean, it has multiple other benefits other than just the art itself, and I think that's been the greatest learning. We really wanted you to start the proceedings today because the message of art coming from IIT is what we wanted, and I think the direction is clear. I think the future, I'm sure, going by what you're saying, the future is also getting a lot into interdisciplinarity, right? So people need to be able to understand the connections between things and not just one thing at a time.
So I think the biggest thing that's happening, Anil, is that today, especially when we take people at the high accomplishment end of the STEM area, what really limits them in their performance after that in their work is actually their other skills.
Yeah.
And most of the feedback from potential employers and others is that they lack other skills. And then you organize classes for soft skills and communication skills and so on. It's very pathetic, actually.
Correct.
So we should actually pick this up through this route. And the ones, we can see the difference in IIT, even between the ones who play sports and the ones who don't, leave alone the arts. Because once you play sports, you know how to take loss, you know how to work as a team, you know how to give somebody else the role when they are better at it than yourself. I mean, this is what really completely, constraints in companies when they create teams to build an IC or something, that some fellow who's very competitive or very envious will actually ruin the whole thing. Right. So, these are things you learn through sports. You will run a class and you tell people, thou shalt not be envious. It doesn't work.
Correct.
Okay. So I think these are very important beyond, I would say, just the business of, learning you to calculate faster or something like that. That's really not what it is about. And what I learned is that, when I was a student in IIT, I thought through and I said, well, all these things that companies are looking for, we learned it at home. We learned it in our social sphere. We had to deal with so many people. We had to deal with uncles, aunts, visitors, and you had to know how to handle it. You had to know how to, when to duck, when to say what. And today they don't learn those things. So that's really where the problem is. And how do you provide that? You can't do it through classroom teaching. You have to actually give the environment where they learn. So that's really what it's about. And the last thing I would say is, I saw your introduction, while it's good to have assessments and objectives and so on, but really, education at all levels, I would dare say, is about having fun while you learn. And unfortunately, we have taken a lot of the fun out of the STEM part of it. It's so competitive right from school. At least in the non-STEM part of it, in the arts part of it, I would like to encourage schools to retain the fun part of it. Fun meaning fun and sort of non-competitive, non-assessment. You can assess some amount. I think it's important to assess, but not really to share it with the kids so much, or to even rank people and so on, but more to figure out whether the program is working at a group level. And really, people should learn without worrying about why they're learning and how well they're learning. I think it's very important. At least this part of it, let them do it that way. Unfortunately, it's impossible to get that into the main curriculum. Even if you have a school where they say we de-emphasize grading and marks, the parents want it. So it's like it's an impossible battle. Okay, so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think to end that, I would say when we say assess, I think we're looking more to make sure that we are tracking and monitoring that the child has enough of a balance across things, that it should not become, exclusively focused into one thing. One of the things that we keep pointing out is that we are largely talking at children. We are not talking to children anymore. And we keep giving them rules and rules to assess by. Children don't follow rules. And I think in not following rules is where the maximum creativity is to be found. I think that's sort of the direction.
I'd like to sign off with a lovely WhatsApp I saw yesterday. There's a maze, and there's a cat at one end, and there's a a fish or something at the other, and the child is expected to help the cat find the fish, and the child actually draws a straight line outside the maze straight to from the
exactly.
That's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so
that's it. That's basically what it is. That's where the creativity comes in, right? The simplest objective is the straight line. Why do you even have to go through the maze?
Exactly. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhaskar Ramamurthi, for your time. We know what a busy time it is for you, especially in a very challenging year. So thank you once again. Means a lot to us.
Thank you. I'm signing off. Thank you.